More details emerge from the National Public Data Breach that exposed millions of Social Security numbers to hackers, and it does not look good. In addition, the streaming space continues to evolve as some ideas get blocked down while other new ideas get hatched. We're going to talk about these stories and more in our weekly Tech News Roundup, starting now. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. The guy behind the monitors is Chris. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. And joining us again from his San Francisco remote office is Brandon Mahne. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Glasshouse and the owner of Mangrove Collective. Welcome back, Brandon.
Thanks, Keith. Hi, Chris. Good to see you.
Hey, quick update. The people at Waymo said that they've stopped the ability to, the cars honking. Have you heard that too? Or you're not hearing any honking anymore, right?
I'm not hearing any honking. I haven't totally heard that the fix is rolled out, but that story is definitely dying and quieting down around San Francisco.
I was going to talk about it this week. I'm just going to do it really briefly, but someone had taken the feed from the apartment and then put lo-fi music behind it, so you could chill out with some lo-fi music, and then every now and then you would hear a honk. So I thought that was a brilliant way to get a lot of viewers to keep this story going. But all right. That's all I'm going to talk about that from now on. All right. Let's jump right in with the big stories for this week. More details are coming out about this breach at National Public Data, a consumer data broker that recently spilled hundreds of millions of American Social Security numbers, addresses, and phone numbers online. The blog Krebs on Security has learned that another NPD data broker, which shares access to the same consumer records, inadvertently published the passwords to its back-end database in a file that was freely available from its homepage until recently. In April, a cyber criminal named USDOD began selling data stolen from NPD. In July, someone leaked what was taken, including the names, addresses, and phone numbers. And apparently, that's now 272 million people where their numbers were released, and included many who are now deceased. And I think they said, I read another story that said 20% are legit in terms of the names, addresses, and social security numbers. Yeah. So we're still talking about potentially 50 million people.
It's still a lot.
Yeah, it's still certainly a lot. So NPD acknowledged the intrusion on August 12th, saying it dates back to a security incident in December of 2023. And then Krebs also said that this other site, review of the archive, shows that it includes the source code and plain text usernames and passwords for different components of recordscheck.net, which is visually similar to nationalpublicdata.com and features identical login pages. The exposed archive, which was named members.zip, indicates RecordsCheck users were all initially assigned the same 6-character password and instructed to change it, but many did not. According to the breach tracking service Constella Intelligence, the passwords included the source code archive are identical to credentials exposed in previous data breaches that involved email accounts belonging to NPD's founder, an actor and retired sheriff's deputy from Florida named Salvatore Verini. Reached via email, Mr. Verini said the exposed archive, a .zip file, has been removed from the company's website, and the site is slated to cease operations, quote, in the next week or so. Okay, so there's a lot of issues here. Again, this might become a TV movie at some point. Whenever you hear about a big breach, and I just keep thinking of the Hollywood movies where people are just, typing, you've got hackers and they're all at computers and it's like, it just ends up being something dumb that was exposed that shouldn't have been exposed. Like, I'm outraged again at this about how kind of like weird stupidity is causing, all of these breaches. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
I think that's exactly right. I mean, we talked last week, right, that it's not the actual security postures, it's these ancillary systems, it's the social engineering. It's just people not thinking and having a zip, not knowing what's in there, customer asking for something, and you make it easily accessible to try and move those conversations or those sales forward. Like it's just lazy.
And to be fair, this might not be the way that they got in. Like, again, it might not be. But through the course of the investigation, what Brian Krebs was doing here and people that were tipping him off, they discovered that this thing was out there in the open. So I don't know if this is what they stole and this is how they got in, but just leaving, it's like leaving a big giant bag of money outside the bank. Like,
you talk about the hackers and the visuals. This is just somebody like right-clicking and saving file. Like that is,
right.
Crazy.
And again, the file was not the actual records of everybody, but it was basically, hey, here's a list of our passwords. Oh, and by the way, here are all these passwords that you're supposed to change, and then some of them didn't. Like, I
think this is just a rude awakening on how we store and share our information.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think there needs to be some rework on how we do this.
I keep
security really does boil down to the individual, to a human element, right? So it's like, all right, well, that's a hard thing to trust, right? A human being, right? So I think there has to be some sort of change. We can't have people and systems, rely on keeping our information safe.
Yeah.
We have to do something else.
I keep assuming that every company that I'm working with, whether I'm giving them my credit card number or even worse, my social security number, is doing their job and encrypting the data and storing them, correctly. And the servers that they're on, you can't uncrypt unless you have these keys. Again, we've been talking about computer security for 30 something years now. To find out that people are doing stuff that is either an inadvertent mistake, laziness, or something else. I mean, it's mind-boggling. It makes me angry.
Yeah. I don't know what more.
Keith, you're screwed. Thanks.
No, I mean, honestly, I don't know what more there needs to be said about it, other than maybe we should get off the internet. Maybe we should stop putting all of our information out there. Maybe we need to stop putting trust in these companies, corporations, or other people who are tasked with protecting our data.
And this was a company that was doing background checks on people. And so, again, you would think that, if I'm going to have a background check done on me, I would hope, and again, this could be like, the person that was doing the background check, that company outsourced it to a second party who outsourced it to a third party. You might end up getting a lot of different third or fourth party companies, and no one's checking. I'm pretty sure that no one's checking to see if any of these things are secure. It's this whole quote unquote trust me society that we apparently live in, but I can't trust anybody anymore. So the second story that we have around this was PC Mag was talking about two companies have been set up. So if you think that if you want to see if your social security number was in this data breach, there are two websites that you can go to where you type in some information and they'll tell you whether or not it's in there or not. Now, the first thing I did when I went to the site was, are they just trying to steal my data? So,
that's what I thought too.
Yes. So the article does say that they're not keeping the data, the data does not store or save any user searches. And I didn't have to type in my social security number. I just had to type in my name, my first name, last name, and zip code. So I was pretty secure. I'm pretty confident that that's probably already out there anyway. So I clicked, and yes, my number's in there. So,
I clicked and mine was not, so I was happy to see that.
You were safe, and we did it. We did, and Chris, I inadvertently did it for Chris. I didn't. I did ask him what zip code he was, and he gave me a zip code, and so he was not in the database, so he's good. And I checked. So my wife and I were concerned about our daughter too, who's about to enter college, and so she's getting all of these credit card offers and things like that for credit. So we checked her, and she's fine too, so she's not in there. And then again, last week we talked about this. I made sure all of my credit is frozen so that, I'm not going to get my identity stolen, at least from this breach. But Chris, you were saying that you think that you were involved in one of the other hacks, like your data's out there from the big.
Oh yeah. Like if you have a credit card, if you have a couple credit cards and you use your credit card app, they run dark web scans and stuff like that, and they'll let you know. But interesting, if you go and take a look at that article, if you go about halfway down, there's a quote.
Yeah.
we can't really pretend anymore that social security numbers are private anymore.
Yeah.
You cannot say this is just another nail in the coffin. There have been so many breaches out there. Every social security number is likely out there. That's what I mean. I think it look, the hackers and the thieves, they've already one-upped us. So something needs to happen. Something needs to change.
I don't get a sense that there's as much outrage as there is on this show. So,
I'm surprised this isn't going around, the mainstream outlets more.
I heard about it a lot last week.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're in San Francisco though, so they're a little bit more tech savvy. Maybe some of the Boston stations and the Boston media is a little bit, but I'm hoping that more and more people understand how big this was and how important it is to protect your credit data. Yeah, who knows?
Keith, I want to go back to something that you mentioned, who is accountable for this? And, in the software development space, in SaaS, we have certifications around SOC 2, around ISO 27001. These are industries where auditors are charging a ton of money every year to ensure that not only policies are written, but that organizations are following them with regards not only to their practices, but also their data sub-processor processes. So I'm very curious as this comes out, how were they able to get this data without those certifications? How is it shared? How is it not on somebody's risk register that may come back for these auditors and the verifications that they've done? So as it all falls out, there should be accountability and there should be outrage, certainly from that perspective of what are all these certifications that we're spending millions and millions of dollars on every year if it's just fluff
for nothing, for spending it all for nothing.
Well, according to this blog, it was this company was founded by an actor and retired sheriff's deputy from Florida named Salvatore Salvarini. It's like, what? Wait, shouldn't the background check company have been a bigger company than what this is?
Yes.
Especially if you had 272 million people's social security numbers.
And you just going to shut it down?
It's my bad. Was this data on a floppy disk? Was this a 3.5 inch floppy disk that somehow got left at a McDonald's somewhere? Come on.
We need to go back to storing personal data on paper.
On paper, let's go.
On paper, file cabinets. Go back to old school safes, old school security, old school vetting. Honestly, I know it sounds extreme, but
yeah.
Hey,
What was the system that I suggested last week? I forgot already. Where you were, Brandon, you were calling me insane for going back to the system. You
were saying that for applicants of the AI applications, mail your resume in. And I've talked about that over and over again. That still bothers me.
All right. So now we're gonna do paper resumes and mail them in. And we're going to write
physical SSN card.
And we might as well just go back to cash, cash only, forget all this Bitcoin crap.
Think about it. The more we put ourselves on the internet, the more vulnerable you become.
Right.
Really. I mean, that's how I see it.
I swear that this show is going to end up becoming one of those. We're going to be living in a cabin somewhere in the woods, and we're
in a foil hat.
Because again, the alternative for the social security number just feels like the next step that someone's going to suggest or pitch is going to be embedded chips.
It's going to have to. It has to be physicalized. It has to be physicalized.
But it's going to be physical/digital. It's going to be a chip that will have digital information,
but only local to that chip.
Yeah, I'd rather just go back. To be honest, I'd rather just go back to cash. And maybe I'm going to start putting all my money in the backyard. I'm going to dig a hole, because I'm sure cash is next. I'm sure that there's going to be some kind of cash thing that gets suggested. All right. Before we go too insane, we're going to talk about internet streaming services, because there were two stories that I found interesting this week. The first one was a federal judge has blocked Warner Brothers Discovery, Fox Corp, and Disney's new sports streaming service from launching later this month. U.S. District Judge Margaret Garnett said Friday that the new offering, called VNews Sports, would substantially lessen competition and restrain trade. Fubo, which is a sports-centric streaming service, sued the three companies earlier this year after they announced this joint venture. Lawyers for Fubo argued that Venu is anti-competitive because Fox, Warner, and Disney forced the service to pay for a broad bundle of general entertainment channels without the ability to handpick only the sports-centric channels it wants to distribute. There's a bunch of other stuff going on. But Brandon, were you on the show when we were talking about this initial service, or was You don't remember?
That was before, or I was off that time.
All right. So when this was announced, this was the feeling was that within the streaming media space, that live sports was the last kind of bastion for cable. Like, so the people that were cutting their cords for, and they were moving from cable to the streaming services, only the really diehard sports fans were the ones that were keeping cable TV. And so we're coming up on the NFL season, for example. And so, I think my brother, who's really into football, still has cable because of that. Now, he may have switched over to some of these other, he may be watching YouTube Live now for all of his TV stuff. That also includes Sunday Ticket and those types of platforms. But
I thought Google was coming for that. Yeah. With Live.
But if you want to get it, I think for NBA games, my son is really into the Celtics and watching basketball. We can get some of the games on Max because they have the deal with TNT and Bleacher Report, so we pay for that a little extra to get those games. But then if they're on ESPN, I'm out of luck because I don't have cable, and I don't want to subscribe to the ESPN Plus part of Disney Plus, et cetera, et cetera. There are ways to do it. But this idea was, if you're a sports fan and you want multiple leagues and multiple sports and maybe sports from around the world, if you're into, cricket or football / soccer, all those types of sports, it's easier if you do it through one bundled service. But apparently this judge thinks that that's going to be anti-competitive, so that's on hold. I just didn't, Brandon, what are your thoughts on the kind of the sports angle of a lot of these streaming things? Because we're also seeing at the same time a lot of consolidation where it feels like these bundles are being put in to bring us back to the world of cable. Like, that's
my point.
Yeah. And so
cable is back, right? Whether it be satellite or cable, charter, Xfinity, it feels like it's just moved around, that you're back to paying way too much for entertainment with little that you actually value.
Yeah.
They're cracking down on password sharing. I know that's something that's been talked about a lot as people are trying to distribute and get the best of all the worlds. But we were promised this a la carte, cheap, new way, and we're just being pulled back in.
It's just different companies that are doing it now. You're just paying a different company. You're not necessarily getting this world of on-demand or easy access to everything that you want to watch.
Because don't you just want to have the Celtics and the things that you care about and pay less for that, ideally?
Right. And again, because all these sports leagues are tied up in long-term TV contract deals, that's the problem too. A lot of the sports people around here, they talk about whenever these licenses are, the TV deals are up, the last time that this contract was made with all of these leagues, there was very little streaming out there. And now you're just seeing every major global company coming out with, hey, we've got a service too. I mean, Amazon is going to take over, they're trying to get the NFL. They've got NFL on Thursday nights. And I believe that they're trying to get more. Apple is doing a deal with MLB, and you start seeing it's a problem too if you're a sports fan and you're used to just clicking on the TV. The biggest problem is you can't do the whole last channel thing anymore. If you were watching two sporting events at the same time, you could just click one button and you would switch between channels. You can't do that with a streaming service. You have to then use the remote and switch to the other service and load it up, and then so that experience has even gotten worse. Versus the days where you could just switch between two channels. Not even to mention picture-in-picture and all that other stuff that was, all of those features.
To the contracts too. I mean, when you look at, I'm a big college football fan. When you look at conference realignment, what happened with the Pac-12 and Apple stepping in, how that actually, the driving of watching those sports is impacting who plays whom, where, and you have college kids that are flying from LA to go and, play Florida State. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. That
is another impact.
What's your college football team that you like watching?
I went to University of Missouri, so I'm a big Tigers fan. Right now, so I'm excited for Eli Drankowitz and everything that's happening with the Tigers here. And 1 week we kick off.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, I guess college football is big in Missouri.
Yes.
University of Missouri was my second school choice. I went to my first one, which was Syracuse. So,
great journalism school.
Yeah. So does Missouri. They have a good school as well. All right. So, The second story I want to talk about in the streaming space, and again, when you first read about it and hear about it, you're thinking this is an Onion story, or this is fake, or this is some sort of April Fool's joke. But apparently it's true. Chick-fil-A, the chicken restaurant, is hatching plans for a streaming service as, this is a horrible pun, as reality TV comes home to roost. All right, so Deadline has reported that chicken restaurant chain Chick-fil-A is moving aggressively into the entertainment space with plans to launch a slate of originals for its own streaming platform. The site said the chain has been working with several major production companies, including some studios, to create family-friendly shows, particularly in the unscripted space. It is also in talks to license and acquire content. Now, this includes a family-friendly game show from Glassman Media, the company behind NBC's The Wall, and Michael Sugar's Sugar 23, which is behind series such as Netflix's 13 Reasons Why. Deadline understands that the show has been handed a 10-episode order. Chick-fil-A, known for its fried chicken sandwiches, is the latest company outside the entertainment industry to move into making its own originals. Now, this was not the first time that a company like this has done this. It joins the likes of Lyft, which has produced shows such as Lucky Lyft, a game show hosted by Bob the Drag Queen, and Airbnb, which previously produced the documentary Gay Chorus Deep South, which aired on MTV. Okay, so as a fan of the chicken restaurant, I'm a big fan. Like I like going to Chick-fil-A. In fact, I grew up in upstate New York, but then when I moved down to Florida for a while, and like the first time I had Chick-fil-A, I was like, this is an amazing chicken nuggets, and their sandwiches are good. I prefer it without the pickle, but that's just me. And so then eventually, when I lived down in Florida, I would go to Chick-fil-A all the time, moved back up north, and actually had, when I met my wife, at our wedding reception, we had Chick-fil-A nuggets. My wife had contacted the company. They actually shipped a whole bunch of nuggets up to us because I was a big fan. And sorry. Oh, big fan that I almost broke the microphone. So but what I don't understand is, and again, I understand the need for wanting to get into this space from a content perspective. I've seen what they've done with their kids' meals. They produce family or friendly, and again, this is a company that is Christian based, and they have. They close on Sundays because they want their employees to basically have a day off so they can spend time with their family, not because they want to go to church. I mean, that's up to there is this faith-based ideas behind the company. So it's not surprising that they would be interested in producing some family-friendly content. I just don't know if a streaming, for a streaming platform, like, am I going to sign up for this? I mean, maybe if I'm interested in the content that they produce. Again, my family's all older now. We're not interested in as much of that content as we used to be. Maybe this is what Disney Plus could have been at one point. Again, family-friendly type of content. My big fear is that you've got people that know how to run a restaurant, but running a restaurant and running a streaming platform are two different things. But I don't know. I guess Disney showed it could do it at some point, but Disney doesn't run its own restaurant chain. I don't know. Brandon, my thoughts are all over the place on this.
I just don't think it makes any sense at all. Like, if you have profits and you're really great at making chicken sandwiches and you have this national reputation, why would you want to? It's not cheap to start a streaming company, right? Like, this is going to be an albatross of spend that's going to take them away from either opening new restaurants or franchises or expanding elsewhere. So it seems like a big distraction to me. Yeah, I guess I get it, but when you look at what Lyft and Airbnb have done, it was more niche, marketing to put out these little shows. Yeah,
it was more of like they were sponsoring the idea of a show, and then it was just sponsored by Lyft. I think I saw Adobe do something like this. There's a series on Roku where it's sponsored by Adobe, and the content of the show is talking about innovative creativity type of people that are doing some new things. And of course, I'm sure that they're all using Adobe Photoshop and Premiere and all these other tools. Right. You can pretty much see through a lot of those types of shows. So
do you think it's just like, so they have something in their restaurants, like they're tired of paying cable, so they're going to produce their own content and people come to Chick-fil-A to watch?
No, it's weird too. What's weird too is that they're looking at reality shows, that it's unscripted content. Now they are going to license some content from other from other places and studios. I would imagine if, I'm sure you're going to get VeggieTales as part of the streaming platform, for those of you who know what VeggieTales represents. But like, what kind of reality show is Chick-fil-A going to produce? Is it just like, who can survive working in a Chick-fil-A, or the game show, Who Wants to Kill This Chicken? I don't know. That's pretty bad.
Well, no, they're just going to start licensing, media to put on the streaming service.
But what kind of reality show would Chick-fil-A want us, like family game shows?
They're not gonna. Look, I don't think they're gonna go out there and license or produce media around chicken stuff.
Right.
They're gonna license and produce content that's gonna, work with the general audience. So, I don't know, put your producer hat on and I mean, they could license a bunch of stuff. They could probably produce, I don't know.
Well, and again, if it's another revenue source that again, attracts other advertisers, because I would hope that it wouldn't just be Chick-fil-A ads, but then maybe integrate, obviously, if they produce their own movie, they're going to then, promote that movie through the restaurants.
The Chick-fil-A movie. Oh my God.
Well, so if you go onto these stories that talk about it, all of the comment sections are like, yep, yeah, you won't be able to watch anything on Sundays. Like, that was the easy joke. The movie comes out, but you can't watch it on a Sunday. I'm sure that there's a bunch of others, especially, anyway. So I'm going to keep monitoring it, because, I do like their food. I sometimes hope that they would, improve their food, because I've noticed a little slip in quality as they've expanded, which happens with a lot of restaurant chains. So, all right, moving back to the reality world of technology, Microsoft has announced that it's going to release its Windows Recall AI search feature to testers in October. Basically, this was the AI search feature for Windows users, which takes screenshots of your activity on the screen so people can search for information they saw earlier. Security researchers quickly expressed concerns about the risks of Windows automatically capturing images without users opting in. Researchers released open source software showing how personal information might become easily accessible to attackers. Microsoft responded in June and said recall would be turned off by default. It also committed to security enhancements for the features. They did not specify the timing for a broader release for Windows computers that meet the system requirements for the recall feature, which the company calls Copilot Plus PCs. Great name. Microsoft unveiled this new class of Windows PCs from a variety of device makers that can run AI workloads, and showed recall running on them in an event in May. I'm a little surprised that they still want to go forward with this, given how much the security people kind of pushed back and the backlash from this. Obviously, making it opt-in at some point might be interesting, but did they still give? Do you get a sense that there's a reason why people might want to use this? Again, a lot of these companies that are putting all of this AI stuff on phones and PCs, they've not made a good argument about why we need this.
We talked about that on a previous episode. I remember us talking, like, what is going to be the feature? Like, what's going to sell these GPU-powered laptops? We talked about gaming, other things, but there really wasn't a killer feature. And I think that they're still looking for that in this recall, trying to sell more hardware. Right. And
again, this, maybe this appeals to some business people. Maybe there's a business use case for it. But if I was going to buy a computer that had this on there, I would not want to use it unless I knew that A, it was that it was useful, and B, that it was completely secure and that wasn't revealing, everything that I was doing.
I think we have to also think about workers, right? That for corporations, if they're buying new laptops and they can empower this, what can they view, work from home folks as doing? What can they take? What can that infer based on productivity and actual contribution and hours worked? Like, if you think about Microsoft and Windows being a more business-based, operating system, maybe that's where they're trying to land, not saying a loud part out loud.
Maybe they're just using it so that they can spy on their employees to see how much they play Wordle every day, or one of those other puzzle things. And not that I would do that at all. I'm only using my computer for work. Do So you do you have a strict policy for work PCs at where you are, Brandon?
Being a smaller startup, we do not. It's a lot of BYOD but in previous iterations, it's been very locked down. IT can always wipe it. There are security updates going on in the background. So I think that as a IT professional and buyer of large organizations, this would be appealing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna track that. Obviously, October is about a month and a half away. So we'll see if companies are adopting this or what happens there. Again, it's Microsoft basically saying, "Hey, trust us." Yeah, both you and I giggle. We know why. All right. One story in the electric vehicle space I want to talk about. Ford Motor Company on Wednesday this week said it was killing a planned 3-row electric SUV and pushing back a new electric version of its best-selling pickup, the F-150. The latest delay by the U.S. automaker as it focuses on cutting costs to stimulate demand. Ford, General Motors, and other car makers have delayed or canceled new electric models to avoid spending heavily on vehicles that consumers are basically not buying as quickly as anticipated. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the EV space. The reason I wanted to talk about it is because I wanted Chris and I to take a victory lap on this because, oh God, how long ago was this, Chris, that we were talking about Toyota and how they went to they were focusing on hybrids. And everybody else in the auto industry was like, "Oh, you're making a mistake." There was threats that they were going to oust the CEO of Toyota because he wanted to do hybrids and not go fully electric. There was this huge movement within the last year or so of everybody, but then once, EVs were out there, people were like, "Wait, there's no infrastructure. We can't recharge these things." And so, you and I have both argued that they should, go to a hybrid model before we get to EVs. And within this story, it's basically Ford saying that they're going to be going and developing more hybrid models. So victory lap for Chris and me. Chris, you want to brag a little bit?
No bragging.
Okay.
But, I don't know, just to point out, EVs today, they're still pricey. They're still really pricey.
Right. And
the act of charging your vehicle is still a big inconvenience. Even if you do charge it, at your own house or whatnot, you still have to get it installed, the hookup, and it's a lot of an electrical draw.
And we saw what happened last winter up in Chicago, where these people were parking their EVs at the airport and they came back and everything was frozen and they couldn't get started. It was basically a brick on the battery. Yeah, there's still a lot to go. So it's interesting to see. And obviously, money talks. If your consumers aren't buying something, you've got to pull back. And so it makes business sense for them as well. Brandon, you had a thought too, right? Oh,
I was just going to say, having not been on earlier, I see the victory lap. Congrats, guys. I guess for Toyota, wasn't it more that they were pushing all in on hydrogen, right? They were really viewing those. So they were behind on some of the hybrid pieces. Did you all talk about that as being another? I
don't think we didn't really talk about the hydrogen part of it. But there was a story in The Verge this week about the hydrogen highway, if you get a chance to read that.
It's still very new, the hydrogen stuff. I don't think it's, openly available yet to the
the hydrogen space. What they need is a better PR campaign. They have to get rid of the word hydrogen, because when people hear the word hydrogen, they think this is going to explode. And
well, the hydrogen bomb.
The hydrogen bomb. The Hindenburg, which was filled with hydrogen instead of helium, and that was a giant disaster, probably almost 100 years ago. So if you could take the word hydrogen and make it something that's family friendly, or soft and fuzzy, then I think that they'll have a better use case. Just coming out and saying trust us, as we've seen from Microsoft and the security companies. It's not going to fly. You've got to really convince people that, it's almost like you have to come up with a new, remember when Comcast changed its name to Xfinity, Brandon?
I do.
And people were like, "Oh, it's a brand new company. It's Xfinity. It's Infinity. It's really cool." It's like that. Hydrogen has to become googly blue, or without using the word
bubbly,
Google.
right? Something along those lines.
Like what?
Your bubbly car.
Yeah, it's a bubbly car. It's fun. It's bouncy. It's not going to explode. again, from a scientific perspective, yes, it makes sense. But, sometimes the scientists have to talk to the marketers.
Yes.
And quantum computing, for example, like that, like I have no idea what that means. Like, but
just a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, I mean, that's why.
Mad at me, don't at me.
I mean, I got a bunch of AI. Like AI is cool because people sort of know what it means. I don't know. Maybe that's why. All right. And so this is why I'm now going to segue into our final story, which is, again, I thought this was a fake story, but it really is a real story. So space mining startup Astroforge is basically aiming to launch a historic asteroid landing mission in 2025. Astroforge, the California company, announced on August 20th that it aims to launch its third mission in 2025 as a ride-along on Houston company Intuitive Machines' IM-3 moon mission. That launch will send Astroforge's 440-pound Vestry probe to dock with a metallic near-Earth asteroid, an unprecedented leap for a commercial spacecraft. If successful, the mission will be the first private mission to land on another body outside of our Earth-Moon system and will move us closer to realizing our mission for making off-world resources accessible to all humankind. The same update revealed that Astroforge has raised $40 million more from investors, bringing its total funding haul to date to $55 million. The company was founded in January 2022 and came out of stealth mode 4 months later. The company plans to extract resources from asteroids to unlock a cost-effective and sustainable mining solution that replenishes resources and safeguards our planet's future. The company plans to focus on metals, which is a different tack that was taken by previous off-Earth mining startups, which aimed to go after asteroid water. Water can be split into its constituent hydrogen and oxygen, the chief components of rocket fuel. Mining it in space could therefore potentially help establish quote-unquote gas stations for spacecraft, fueling their voyages deep into the final frontier cheaply and efficiently. So I think what they want to do is they want to find some rare, I want to say rare earth metals, but they want to find rare metal that they can then ship back to the U.S. The first time I saw the story, I was thinking, whenever I hear about asteroid mining, I think of the movie Armageddon. Which was they were going to drill holes in the asteroid to prevent it from hitting the Earth and split it.
Yes.
Right. But then I realized as I read it, was like, no, these are going to be robotic. These are going to be robotic spacecraft that are going to go land on the asteroid, dig up the materials, and then somehow launch again to come back to Earth, right?
I just think like every comic book series that we've read, like growing up, it all ends badly when you land on an asteroid and bring something back. I'm just like, this is straight out of the comics. We're gonna mine all of this material, and then they're gonna open it up, and there's gonna be an alien that pops out and starts attacking everybody. Yeah. Or there's some kind of virus that will wipe out the. But hey, there has been spacecraft that they've targeted some asteroids that were flying by, and they were able to successfully land on it. I don't know if were they able to take off again from that and hopefully not, change the trajectory so that, in 50 years it's going to come back and crash on us. Anyway, I like this idea of somehow a celestial gas station. So it's like, okay, well then you land on this asteroid and there's a robot there, and they're like, oh, fill it up with gas. I don't think people realize how vast the world of space is. Like, I don't know if you know this, that whenever you see pictures of asteroids or there's movies where they're going through an asteroid belt, there's all of these rocks that they're avoiding. And in reality, the asteroid belt that's, in our solar system, like there's one rock here and then there's another rock about 1 million miles away. And then, the perspective just blows people away. Or like, there's not such thing as like, it's not like they're going to be able to go hop to hop to hop. Anyway, any other thoughts on this, Brandon? Like, again, we probably won't see this in our lifetime. No, I don't think so. I would just say back to the previous conversation, at least we're investing in the infrastructure of space travel, unlike EVs. I think that's we're learning some lessons.
But it's like, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about those astronauts that are still on the space station. We still can't get them. We can't get them home. The last thing I read about that was they were thinking about getting SpaceX to go up and rescue them, but it turns out that the spacesuits that SpaceX uses are not compatible with the ones that Boeing gave them. So if they were going to return in the spacecraft, they would have to do it basically without their spacesuit on, which means it's like, and then that could like open them up to, overheating and risks and things like that. So, I mean, we're getting closer and closer to figuring out what they're going to do. So, hopefully at some point they'll get these guys home safely. Yes. Top minds. Yeah. Wow. Maybe it's just NASA going, trust us. Yeah. And that's how you segue all the shows all the stories into one show. So, Brandon, again, thanks a lot again for joining us this week. Great job as always. And Chris, good to talk to you as always too. Yep. All right, that's all the time we have for today's episode. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, add any comments you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.